So glad you are here with me today.
Woohoo, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we have been talking about doing a podcast together for forever. And so we are finally here. And so, everybody, I am so glad you guys are going to hear from Gloria today. And those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, you're going to see from Gloria today. So, today we're going to be talking about how to be your own publicist and never pay for ads again. But before we get into all that, I want you to kind of just give us a little bit of your story, like just in general of entrepreneurship and all that, and then how you got into what you have been doing lately.
Woo! How much time you got, honey? So if anyone is thinking about a career pivot, this episode is for you. I actually came into PR with no PR experience. I was actually a US diplomat, so I was working in government, and I always just wanted to work in PR because I love to communicate, and I was always that like unofficial hype woman, like hyping people up. So I wanted to work in PR. I probably applied to over 1,000 jobs, and I couldn't get a single one because PR agencies are still very old school. They want cookie cutter PR agency experience. And that's when I realized, like, oh my God, this industry is time, it's time for a disruption. And there was this like gate that they were keeping where they basically said, you as small businesses need to pay us for our relationships in order to get featured. And I thought, well, that's not really fair. So I just started picking up the phone, cold calling, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I'm talking like phone book style, like dialing zero from the operator. And I cold pitched thousands of times on email and phones, got thousands of rejections. And I started to pick up on what were the things that made the journalists actually stay on the phone with me and what got my clients featured on all of the top outlets. And these were unknown people. These were people with no connections in the media. So I kind of cracked the code on PR and I hacked it on the outside. And now I'm helping all sorts of entrepreneurs, especially women of color, female coaches, female entrepreneurs, also get seen, heard, and valued in the media without any kind of old school PR pay to play. And I think this is really the sacred work that we need to do in this lifetime because I think no one teaches us how to advocate for ourselves. It's really like, oh, if you want to get featured, you have to pay or you have to, get be in the cool kids club. But what about all the rest of us who deserve to be seen? So to me, it's a personal mission as well.
For sure. And that makes total sense. So my first question about that is like, how did you get this like passionate grit type that made you go, I can do this. I'm gonna make all the calls, I'm gonna send all the emails.
Honestly, I just had to because I was in between careers. I gave up the most comfortable pension, this career that would set me up for life, and I couldn't turn back. And so I was starting my career from zero, and my friend's friend worked at a very tiny startup. It was him and two other founders. And he's like, we make this really obscure fintech thing and compliance. I had no idea about fintech. I got a D in statistics. And he's like, if you can get us onto CNBC and Wall Street Journal and New York Times, like, sure, well, we're not going to say no. And so I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know anything about fintech or compliance. I literally sat with the engineers looking at data points and seeing if there's a trend. And I think my zone of genius is figuring out from a very obscure or complex or maybe boring thing, what is the point of relevance that makes it newsworthy? Because what is news if it's not relevant? And I think this is
Mhm.
a skill that a lot of people don't know because we as founders, we know how to sell our benefits and features. We know how to market ourselves, but that is inherently very different than pitching to media, pitching
Yeah.
to a journalist that can spread your story to 30 million people, like on a Forbes, for example.
Yeah. So in that regard, then, so once you were making all those calls, all those emails, what was one of the themes that you started to go, oh, this is one of the things that's causing people to answer the phone or respond to this email?
So funny thing is, I learned that from thousands of times and getting sweaty palms. I mean, it was not cute, right? Like literally dialing the operator and them being like, "Who are you?" But I've noticed that the more I lead with the company's name, what they do, the more like turned off they are actually, which
Mhm.
which doesn't seem intuitive because we're all about selling our products and features and services. So all this to say, the more you lead with your product, your service, your name, your company, the less likely it is for them to feature you. Why? Because it's not relevant. And so what
Yeah.
we have to do is take our sales pitch and turn it into something that is newsworthy. And I teach this in my masterclass that's free, anyone can watch, but there is a method to this madness. There's a method, a structure of a pitch that has proven to work for hundreds of founders. And I can tell you that in a minute, but it's called my CPR pitching framework. It's a way to communicate so that the other person on the other side of the send button who doesn't know you at all will come back and say, yes, tell me more.
No, that's really good. So okay. So tell me then, what was one of the first pitches, like calls, emails? What happened that they actually responded well to?
Oh my God. So when I was pitching my client, it was fintech and this is AI compliance software. I didn't know anything about fintech, AI, or software. But I started to pick up on trends because I looked at what the news was covering. And at that point, it was covering the banking crisis. And so I
Mhm.
was able to link one of their data points to the banking crisis and to pivot and say, usually people think that compliance is, less, compliance is harder in, this region, but actually in this region of the world, they have better compliance. So it was
Mm.
basically comparing two regions of the world for banking compliance and then pitching that to a Wall Street Journal and CNBC and saying, this is what people normally believe, but our data shows something different. And so that's
Mhm.
kind of one of the top 10 things to pitch. It's like, do you have a contrarian point of view or do you have a point of view that's different? Now, obviously, there's different angles. You can pitch a seasonal angle. So if we think about like tax time, summertime, New Year, New
Yeah.
You, that's really a great angle too. But there's really like 10 or so angles that the news media is looking for. And so those are two of them, the regulatory one, three of them, the regulatory one, the contrarian point of view, the seasonal. Also there's another one, it's like and anything with your local like community, that's also one. So are you
Yeah.
partnering up with a local organization? That could be something that's really good for a local outlet.
Yeah, for sure. So what was the first publication that said yes to you?
The first one that said yes to me, I think it was Financial Times. We got the FT to do a exclusive on their launch, and then I piggybacked on that and kind of ride the coattails of that. And I kind of shopped it around, and they got featured on New York Times, and I was able to get them on CNBC on live television, actually.
Oh my gosh. So what was that like for you? Like how did you feel when you got that the very first one?
I think it was kind of crazy because it was like, it was literally, I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know who to call. I was pasting
Yeah.
together broken links and email addresses
Wow.
and just so much grueling, grinding blood, sweat, and tears. And
Yeah.
when the FT journalist was like, oh, I'm interested, like, send me more, I was like, finally, there's my lucky break. And I think for a lot of us, we never even start PR or pitch ourselves because A, we're not taught to advocate for ourselves. B, we don't have a formula, which I'm going to share with you. And
Mhm.
three, like it can seem like a never ending rejection. And who wants to put themselves to that? But if you can just understand that, you just need that one yes for a podcast, that one yes for a LinkedIn message, it is going to change your mindset, your confidence, and that will be the start of a whole new thing. I mean, right? You've been able to do so much for your business just by pitching for speaking and things. And
100%.
you just need that first yes. And I think a lot of people just give up before that first yes. But once you get that first yes, you can just sigh of relief and it kind of is all kind of more smooth sailing from there.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing this again now?
So I've been doing this since probably about 4 or 5 years. So I
Oh,
first
wow.
worked with startups only, so fintech startups, and a lot of the startups I kind of did their launch announcement for. One of them went on to raise like $500 million or something. I should have gotten equity, but I'm not. I
Yeah.
wasn't so bright back then. And now, and then during COVID, I made a pivot. So we did a program model, one to many, and I do coaching, which is really what I love because I get to go deeper with people. And I pivoted from working with mainly male founders of
Mhm.
startups and to now women of color and female entrepreneurs, which is so much more my speed. And I feel very much satisfied with that. So
Yeah, so I have that curiosity because I'm sure that they're probably wondering too. Like you were working with males, of course, and then now you have your new audience. What was the reasoning why you decided to go in that direction?
I think that as a woman of color and first generation immigrant, I never saw anyone who looked like me in the media.
Mhm.
And so I was never taught to advocate for myself or even like put myself out there. And I realized as I was doing this work and just learning about small businesses, female entrepreneurs of color start more small businesses than any other demographic. It's women that make the backbone of small business, but we don't see that in the media. And I feel like it's time to change that. And the funny thing is that when I worked with the men in the startup scene, they had no issues about putting themselves in front of every single newspaper. I mean, they could be making the crappiest software that's like not even developed. And they're like, oh, yeah, I want to get on New York Times. And I feel like for women, it was so different. For women, it's like, am I ready yet? I don't think this is done yet. Like, it's almost like
Mhm.
we had to wait our turn. And so my work has become more of like a mindset coaching as well because yes, PR is important, but if you don't have the right mindset or the confidence to keep pressing that send button, then you're not
Mhm.
going to go after it. So a lot more of what I do now is the mindset coaching and it's been really rewarding work.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like, I remember when I first heard you talking about like the people that you serve, I was like, it's not every day that you hear someone who is focused on helping the quote unquote underdog, the one that isn't necessarily the one that's being propelled, but should be being propelled. And it was so intriguing to me to just see someone who could see me, could see us, and wanted to help us to further our own like business desires and all those types of things, because it's not every day that somebody says, I'm not going to focus on the easy ones that are male or white or what have you, but I'm going to focus on X, Y, and Z. And I guarantee you that it's probably one of the most fulfilling things that you do is watching your people that look like you and us to have success, right?
Yeah, and I think what unites us is that for all of us, we're like the first in many. We're a lot of
Mhm.
our people are the first to go to college or the first to speak English. We have a lot of people who are mothers. We have the people who are, so I think there's a lot of firsts, and people who go first, we need community, we need support, and we need to be able to advocate for each other. And I always say this is in our community, we are shining a light on each other. And so together we make the world brighter. I know it sounds like a Hallmark movie, but it's true.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes total sense. So I know that everybody now is like, okay, well, get to the point, get to the gritty, give me all the details. So we're talking about how to be your own publicist and not pay for ads. So walk us through, like, what are your thoughts about how a person can get started on this journey? And then you mentioned was it CPR method you said? Yeah. And then
Yeah.
what does that look like?
I want to preface this by saying, there's a lot of coaches out there and there's a lot of things out there, right? And I always say if someone is making things complex, be wary of that because they're trying to capitalize on your fears and monetize it. So, and
Mhm.
if anyone that you're working with makes things difficult, then I would be cautious. PR is really simple, and PR is literally writing a pitch and sending it out. So as long as you have a pitch and you know who to send it to, and by the way, this is all public information, who to send it to because they're journalists, then there's no reason why you can't be your own publicist. So that's really the crux of it, is that it's simple, but they don't want you to know that, right? Because they want you to keep paying the agencies, thousands of dollars. So let's talk about what to write.
Yeah.
So my CPR method teaches you how to write a pitch. And the C stands for credibility, which is one sentence at the end of the email. Hey, I am a founder and I've noticed this, problem firsthand. P in CPR stands for point of view, and it usually looks like 3 bullet points in the
Mhm.
email expressing your do's and don'ts, or maybe it's tips. If you are a meal planning coach, it could be something about the new year. If you're a skincare expert, it could be about 3 ingredients, things like that. I like threes. I think it's enough to tell a journalist that you know what you're talking about without rambling on and on. And R in CPR, which is the most important part of the entire thing, is relevance, because what is news if it's not relevant? And I usually like to start my emails with relevance right away because you're competing for the journalist's attention every single second. So you want to boom straight out of the gate, say, this is why it's relevant. So, for example, if you are a fitness coach, it could be about something for summer. It could be about summer activities and how to stay fit while you are traveling for spring break, or if you're in hotels. If you
Mhm.
are a dietitian, it could be something about end of year meal hacks on how to, reduce calories, like whatever it is, relay it to the relevance of the season. It could also be something with the new policies and regulations in your town, county, or state. We have a lot of people who are finance coaches. And so there's tons of different policies and tax savings and different things. So always think about how you can tie it to a point of relevance, the season that we're on, or maybe it's a trend. If you're a fitness coach, there's a lot of TikTok trends and social media trends. Maybe it's something about, why this viral TikTok handstand trend is causing injury and how you can do it better. So there's always
Mhm.
ways that you can make it relevant, but that's really kind of how the email looks. You start with the relevance, you go into 3 bullet points of what you're offering, which is the point of view, and you conclude with a very simple sentence of, I'm happy to discuss more about this. And notice the tone here. The tone is not, please feature me, I'm desperate, I can't pay for ads, or I don't have money to. It's I have this information that's helpful for your audience. Here's a little tidbit. And here's how you can contact me. It's very confident. It's not begging. It's not desperate. And the whole point of the pitch is not to write the article for the journalist. That's their job.
Mhm.
It's just to give them enough information for them to kind of imagine what a story could be. Because you never know what the story could be, right? You could pitch something about fitness, which is about, hip mobility, hip, HIP. And then they could be like, oh, well, I'm actually looking for someone to write about this instead, but can you give me a quote? So you never know where it's going to go, but it's a great way to start this connection with a journalist, because it's all about building connections with members of the media.
Mm-hmm.
If you can build a connection with them, a lot of them now are freelance writers. They write for multiple outlets. It means that if you can get in the good graces of one of them, then you are locked in, right? They're going to be calling you for another quote because they are writing stories all the time. They are looking for
Right.
reliable sources.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So are you like finding these people's information on like just their websites?
Yeah. So we talked about PR. It's two things. It's what to write and who to send it to. So we talked about what to
Mm-hmm.
write with the CPR. Now, who to send it to? There's certain ways you can hack it on your own. So you can install a Google News Alert, which I love. So if you are in, let's say, marketing, right, you could put in like a couple of keywords, and Google will send you all of the articles being published on your keyword. And it's as easy as copy and pasting the journalist into an Excel spreadsheet and populating and growing your own media database. Now, obviously, in our program, we have an expansive one, but you kind of start to do that in a grassroots way. There's also things like Haro, Help a Reporter Out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tells you every day what journalists are looking for, different people that they're looking to interview in different niches. There's also hashtags you can follow on social media. For example, hashtag journal requests on Twitter, and social media tells you that journalists are looking for people to interview in different sources. So if you fit the bill, then you can go and say, hey, like, I'm happy to give a quote on X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that they're asking for.
Wow. That's I'm just sitting here like, duh, because I installed a Google Alert for TikTok like months ago, and I constantly get the emails, but I've never considered clicking on the article and looking to the journalist and actually reaching out to them. Like, I mean, it makes total sense. I've kind of been just waiting for them to reach out to me. I did have Wall Street Journal reach out to me a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of cool. But I think like that here's an opportunity of like reaching back out to that journalist and or just all the ones that come in my Google alerts. So that's really smart. But I guarantee that you probably make it a lot. Like, do you still pitch clients, or you just mainly coach people on what to do?
I always say, if I pitch for you, then I own the relationships. If you want to
Mm.
be free of any retainers, then you need to learn how to fish, and you can fish for life. So we give you the
Mm.
contacts and we give you the templates, and you just copy and paste. And here's the thing, you talked about reaching back out. I love what you said about that, because it's as easy as you saying, to the TikTok journalist, hey,
Yeah.
I love what you wrote about TikTok. Have you thought about writing about this? Because now they're rolling out a new feature. The
Mhm.
great thing about news is that if you pitch once and they don't message, it's not like it's dead in the water. News is always evolving. And so it's always good to follow back up with whatever's changing. So if you're like a meal planning coach, if it's, a different season with different ingredients, then you can go pitch back to the same person. I think a lot of people think, well, if I pitch once and they don't respond, then it's dead in the water. It's totally not. You have to follow up. And, here's another hack for all of y'all is install an email tracking device, so that anytime, even before you send out any emails, if it's being open or not. And that way it gives you
Mm.
data to make unemotional decisions. So instead of being like, oh, this journalist hates me, which by the way, they don't, they're busy writing stories. It could be a subject line issue, it could be a deliverability issue, or it could be out of office issue. So if you have data on whether or not they're opening your email, you can make better decisions. If they're not opening your email, let's solve for that. How can we make sure that that's the right email? How can we make sure your email sending reputation is good? How can we make the subject line better? If they are opening it multiple times, then that's when you really follow up. Maybe you can compliment them on an article they wrote. Keep that lead warm as you would a customer, and then think about it as a relationship. If they're opening it multiple times, that's a really good thing. It means that they really like it. They're just trying to find a place for it in their editorial calendar.
Mhm.
These are all the little clues that we can use with software to help us kind of be our own publicist.
Oh yeah, that is really good. I made sure I wrote that down because that's like, I mean, it makes total sense to do that, but I think that probably because many of us are not pitching ourselves, or we assume that it looks like something, because all these agencies reach out to us, it looks like they have to do whatever it is that seems like we need to do and pay the $20,000 that they ask us to do, that many of us feel like we just can't do it. But this is like super golden. I don't know how you guys feel, those of you guys that are watching or listening to this, but I'm like, oh my God, like, because everybody's talking about TikTok right now. And I'm like, I need to go and like pitch all these people to talk about not just the TikTok ban, but I can start with that because obviously that's like the hottest thing and I can talk about it as a business. So thank you so much for that. Okay. So I know you were sharing that you offer a way for people to be able to to learn how to learn, like you mentioned your CPR method, and I'm sure you have this inside of a course or a program. Can you tell us a little bit about how you actually help people?
So I'm really a big believer in note gatekeeping. So people have watched my free masterclass and got on like 20 pieces of news. Like we had someone who makes sheets, like organic sheets, and he got on like BuzzFeed, Cosmo, Allure, Condé Nast just from watching the free masterclass. So that's available for anyone that's listening at any time. And you can go to Gloria Chou PR.com. That's Gloria CHOU PR.com/masterclass. And you can actually see the anatomy of a pitch. I reveal line by line from subject line down to the last sentence what that looks like. And then obviously I have my PR program for founders, and you can go to PRstarterpack.com. And that's really my program where I give you access to journalists. So I actually bring in journalists from Forbes, from Condé Nast, from BuzzFeed, from Business Insider, and they actually coach you. And so I'm coaching with them, and they're answering questions like, this is what you should pitch, or this is how you should follow up. And they actually reveal what their inbox looks like. So we give you screenshots of good and bad pitches, because I always think it's better to learn the skill by seeing how it's actually done. So it's unprecedented access to journalists, and obviously a database of 100,000 contacts across 100 different keywords. So whether you're in yoga, fitness, parenting, education, we have all the journalists who have written about that, and that really covers it. That's really how PR is. It's really what to write and who to send it to, and we do all of that for you and more in our community. So
That's amazing. So the masterclass is gloriachoupr.com/masterclass, right?
correct. Yep.
And then the program is PRstarterpack.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So before we wrap up, what is one thing that you could just tell a person who is brand new, listen to this for the very first time? What is the one thing you would say to them, period?
That you are the number one spokesperson for your business, and you cannot delegate it or throw money at the problem to get someone else to do it for you. No one will care, and your business absolutely needs you to be its spokesperson. So you need to do the pitching. You need to be the one to actually prioritize this in your business. And once you do, you're going to open up so many different levels for your business. You're going to learn a skill. You're going to learn how to communicate. You're going to learn how to position. You're going to get SEO. And it just kind of goes on and on. But you need to step into that frequency and realize that your business needs you to start this process.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I agree. And for me, it's a reminder of like, Kenya, don't just pitch to speak, pitch for the media, because like all the media pitching is going to lead me even more faster to my desired result. So that's really good. So we're going to put this in the show notes, but can you tell us where you want people to follow you?
So I'm on Instagram at Gloria Chou PR. That's Gloria CHOU PR. I share a lot of stuff that's also not PR related. Like I share about healing my relationship with my mother. I hear about, a lot of authentic and vulnerable stuff. But you can DM me the word pitch, and I will send you an additional pitching freebie so that you can implement right away what you learned today here. So at Gloria Chou PR, DM me the word pitch.
That's so good. Well, listen, this is the very first time we've had somebody on the show, the audio and on YouTube, talking about PR. And I already know I'm going to get direct messages asking to bring you back. So we'll definitely have you back on probably in a couple months, because I already know as people start going that they're going to start having success, me included. I'm sitting here like, I need to especially right now, I should be talking about TikTok to everybody as of this point. And I'm like, I have a lot to say. They just don't know that I exist. So thank you so much, Gloria, for sharing all of that with us. And then guys, if you want to join her program, there's going to be a link in the show notes for the PR Starter Pack, and also for the Masterclass, that's going to be in the show notes. But also, like she said, come follow her on Instagram and DM her the word pitch so that you can get all the things. So thank you so much for being here, Gloria. And guys, thanks so much for watching.